Welcome to Authentication Node React, which is where if you're authenticated, you can see a personalized message over here of your name. If not, it will let you know. There are a couple of ways to authenticate. Firstly, register, like either traditional flow here or with an OAuth. I'm going to show firstly the traditional flow here. So let's say this is the email ID. And there's also reCAPTCHA here, so the backend actually checks for these fields. So if the reCAPTCHA is missing, this backend is already telling you that these fields are correct or not. Then let us say we try to submit this. Sometimes there is some course error happening on this. I can't figure out exactly why. Sometimes it happens in some requests, and in other requests it doesn't. It just passes through, so like just right now. But if you are registered successfully, then you can start to use those credentials to log in. reCAPTCHA, since I have tried too much. Okay, so we have logged in correctly, but what if we are not able to log in? Again, some errors. So now this thing, let's say if we are entering some wrong password, what happens? So reCAPTCHA is missing. reCAPTCHA has to be there. Cars. Invalid credentials. So you can again forget the password in that case. Forgot password. And you can try to reset it. It has sent a recovery email to your email. So if we check that, and it will likely go in your spam folders, so please do check that. When you register, you actually get this kind of email from us, and for this resetting this password, you get this token which will expire within 1 minute. So you can try to reset my password like this. I have said some course error is happening, but if I make the request once more, then if I use the updated password, some course error, but traffic lights, crosswalk. Yeah, then you are logged in. That concludes the demo. So this is the architecture for us, where as a user you are making request to a front-end server, getting the React single page application downloaded in your system after first request, and then basically you're using the downloaded React single page application to make all further requests to our Node backend server, which might request the database, which is a MongoDB Cloud Atlas database, and some third-party services like Google OAuth, and we are also using SendGrid to send emails. So let's see the code, how it is structured. We have a couple of folders, like a front-end folder, which is a React single page application, like a view layer basically, which is totally separate and hosted on a different server, front-end server, and backend is hosted on a different server. Here let's enter the root point of code. So we are firstly getting our environment variables. How are we getting that? Depending upon your process environment, I am going to export either the keys in this file or in this file. So the prod keys are what you get from the environment, and that is exported, or you get it from this part and we export it. Then we have we import all these service packages. Then we are setting up Mongoose. Then we are setting some basic setup. Then we have all of this as just course setup. just to make the like a front end on a different URL, being able to talk to our backend on a different URL. So we needed some rigorous course here. We are setting up passport, then we are setting up all the other routes here, then a default asynchronous error handler. So because we are having a lot of asynchronous way of throwing error, we needed this. And notice that we are using a custom error object here, which is guaranteed to have some field like status code, message, data, so that we can pass it to the front end and they can appropriately show the errors. That's how the whole error mechanism works even on the front end, because they rely on this kind of message structure. So default 404 error, SSH error, and then basically just listening on the board. So let's start to see what are all the routes. We are using a middleware kind of approach where, let's say you have a URL for register. So any URL which is accepting a body in post or put anything, that is going to be validated first of all with a middleware, a custom middleware. Then we have a reCAPTCHA checking kind of middleware, and then a business logic of actually registering user, logging in user. So this is actually a middleware which I want to show, that like using this one function and passing in different kind of schema, as you can say JOI schema, we can configure a middleware which is going to validate exactly for this schema. So let's see what the schema actually looks like. These are just JOI schemas for each of the requests which were accepting bodies, these validation models within this, cleanly separated in one file. And what is this function doing? It's just accepting these schemas, and JOI has this function validating, which will try to validate the body of request, and if it throws any error, then we'll capture it here. If not, then we'll move to the next middleware, which is basically in this case check reCAPTCHA. So we can check now check reCAPTCHA, which is going to throw an error or throw an error in different cases, unless and until it is totally correct, in which case it will pass to next middleware. So that's bring us then to our business logic of these layers: register, login. So where are these placed? Side note, some passport related logic is also kept over here in a separate folder here. But moving on to our core logic for authentication, these are all our registered, login, or getting the user related information, his name, or logging out the user. All the functions are over here. Important things to note are we are sorting the password, checking whether even the user exists or not before doing anything, and of course a validation and reCAPTCHA is also happening before this function is even called. Then we are also sending some emails depending upon the user, so that the user is welcomed, and then of course we are setting up some messages, custom messages to our front end. So this is what is getting shown to front end then. And then our essentially logging mechanism is with these cookies of JWT tokens. So that's what we are using. And when you are logging out, then we are just setting those cookies to nothing. And then we have two more functions which are forgot password and resetting the passwords. So we will also be setting the tokens. These are pretty self-explanatory. I've done extensive comments so that can be seen. Middlewares we have covered. Then we can go to models. User model is standard, like all the details you need for the user except the Google ID now. As for OAuth, and then the reset token. So every email can have a reset token which essentially has a validity of, let's say, 1 minute, and it will automatically expire. There is no extra needed code to write. So database will already remove that entry if it is more than, let's say, 1 minute. So your token will expire automatically without writing any extra code here. Then the validation model which we discussed. Then we have some two different ways of sending emails. One is just for a local development mode using MailHog as a client. You can just run SMTP locally, or we are using even SendGrid. So right now in production I'm just using this as true, so I'll be using SendGrid related configurations. If not, then I can always use it as a development mode using MailHog. So we'll see exactly those settings in Mailer in our services. So Mailer is basically Mailhawk currently uses this kind of host and port where you can mock emails, and we can use Node Mailer to we basically let Mailhawk run if it is installed, or we can use SendGrid. So depending upon these two, which one you want, this default email template will be used, and this will be used by login, register, or forgot email, wherever you want. Then we have passport related service, again OAuth, pretty standard, serial ID, serialize. Then finally we have some utilities, error object. This error object is something which is we are using everywhere whenever we are sending the errors for our business logic, let's say here. So pretty extensive, like we wanted to extend it. Yeah, that is all on the code side. Thank you.